The world has changed. It's now bipolar, two poles. The United States, whose star is on the way down, and China, whose star is on the way up. Indeed, if you're honest and you look at China, you would recognize that China is now where the United States was a century or maybe a century and a half ago. The up-and-coming country when the British Empire was on the way down, the country that would replace the British Empire, the country that would become the big power in the world.
China is slowing down. At least, that's the story Americans keep hearing. But Richard Wolff argues that the headline may be hiding something much bigger, because even after slowing, China is still expanding faster than the United States. Behind that growth sits the world's largest manufacturing base, massive industrial scale, growing technological capacity, and an economic presence that increasingly gives countries another option outside the West. Wolff believes America isn't simply dealing with another competitor. He believes we're watching the balance of global economic power change in real time. And what he says at the end explains why he thinks underestimating China could be a serious mistake.
That the annual growth rate of the economy in the People's Republic of China is at one of its lowest levels in years, namely an increase scheduled for this year, and they know enough about what's going on to get a good estimate of this year. It'll be very close to what it turns out to be, 4.3%. What that measures is the growth of the Chinese economy. It literally adds up all of the goods and services they produce. It's called the gross domestic product, GDP, and it's growing at 4.3% in the year 2026. And all of the headlines I read, and I read at least a dozen, all said smallest in a long time. Some of them embellished that by saying China's having difficulties or problems or something else like that. The impression being left for a casual reader who either doesn't know much or doesn't read much, that the Chinese economy is not in good shape or having serious difficulties or maybe falling apart, or however they interpret the overwhelmingly negative tone of the article. You'd think 4.3% was a disaster. All right, here's now why it's silly. If the United States could get 4.3%, Mr. Trump would be yelling it from the rooftops. He'd be saying, as he loves to say, how great he is for having brought that to the United States. 4.3% is way better than what the United States can do, has done, or will do this year. The United States government and most international agencies have the following number for the growth of the GDP of the United States this year, 2026. 2.1%, less than half the rate of China. So if China is in trouble with 4.3, what in the world would you say about the United States? Well, to listen to Mr. Trump, he doesn't mention anything like that. He tells you that the stock market is up. Well, as any student of the stock market can tell you, the stock market can be up and the economy can be in the toilet. He tells you about the stock market because it's one of the few up statistics around. All the rest of them are like this one. We're growing at half the rate, not even, of the People's Republic of China. But it's actually even sillier because that's been the story for the last 30 or 40 years. On average, the United States has been growing at 2 to 3% per year, and the Chinese government at 5 to 9%, way more. That's why the Chinese economy has caught up to the American. That's why China is the other superpower in the economic world we live in. That's why Americans are anxious about China, because they figured out how to grow faster than anybody else has ever done, including the United States.
And that's the first part of Wolff's warning. A slowdown and a collapse are not the same thing. China can grow more slowly than it did during its extraordinary expansion and still grow faster than the United States. But the bigger question isn't what happens in a single year. It's what decades of faster growth have already built. Because when Wolff turns from GDP to manufacturing, the argument becomes much more consequential.
China is now the world's #1 manufacturing country. Let me drive that home. Manufacturing is when you make a thing. It's not a service. A service is like you have a haircut. A service is like you get a meal in a restaurant. Manufacturing is making a chair, or making a software program, or making your clothing, and so forth. China dominates in manufacturing. The total manufacturing sector in China is larger than that of the United States, Britain, and Germany combined. It's greater in China alone. No other country is as important to the production of goods in the world as is China. That means it's got millions of people working with machines to produce things all the time. And those people are given all kinds of incentives to come up with new developments, new technologies, new systems of production. They're becoming more and more efficient. For example, you might not know, but China has installed many more robots in its manufacturing sector than we have, either absolutely or on a relative basis. They really are moving the technology ahead. We're not doing that because our manufacturing sector is much smaller. Because they have a big manufacturing sector, they spend a lot of time producing engineers of all kinds, people who can master and improve your production processes. They graduate many, many more engineers each year than does the United States, or for that matter, Europe. Yes, that's partly true because they're a much larger country by population, but they graduate many more than India does too, and India now has a larger population than China does. But the whole world of technological development is going faster in China because it is such a large sector. Research and development is something all Chinese industries, not just manufacturing, but their service sector also, are constantly revolutionizing. You may all have heard of economies of scale. The larger the quantity of output you produce, the cheaper you can make each one. These are economies, you can get by large-scale production. Well, China's a much larger country. It has 1.4 billion people, 3-4 times the population of the United States, maybe a bit more. So they get more in the way of economies of scale, and that makes them more efficient in many lines, more and more each day. You begin to get the picture? China, in a way, is the up-and-coming country in the world economy. It's already been that for 15 years. I'm just letting you know because Americans keep reading headlines, China having problems, instead of understanding the larger picture. Does China have problems? Of course it does. All kinds of problems. But economic growth isn't one of them.
This is where the story moves beyond GDP. Industrial capacity isn't just about how many products a country can manufacture today. It creates supply chains, engineering expertise, automation, research, and the ability to scale new technologies. That doesn't mean China automatically wins every economic or technological race. But Wolff's argument is that focusing on China's problems without looking at what decades of industrial expansion have already created could lead Americans to underestimate the competition. And that competition doesn't stop at America's borders.
The vast majority of people on this earth are not Americans. We comprise 4.5% of the people of this planet. That's all. Add Europe and the United States, you're still under 10% of the people of this planet. The other 90% live in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and so on. And most of them want one thing above all others: to get out from poverty, to be able to have a decent life, enough to eat, adequate clothing, good shelter, medical care, education, transportation, an opportunity to relax, to enjoy their children, and so on. You know what I mean. It is the same thing you want. That's what they want. They want economic development. It's their number one. They want to get out of poverty as far and as fast as they can. China is now the way to do that. Let me say that again. China is the model if fast economic growth is what you want. If you don't want to wait, if you feel you've waited all your life, that your parents and grandparents waited all theirs, if you're tired of waiting, and the 90% of the world very tired of waiting, then China is the model because it has shown how to go from poverty.
And that's why this becomes a geopolitical story. The competition isn't simply about whether China or America produces more. It's also about which country can offer trade, investment, financing, and a development path that other nations find attractive. If countries believe they have another viable option, their economic relationships don't have to revolve exclusively around Washington or Western institutions. And Wolff's final argument is that this shift may already be much further along than many Americans realize.
Let me conclude by telling you what it means that China has done such an incredible job of economic growth. Well, they can produce on a scale nobody else can. And what can they produce? Pretty much everything. They have shown they can match our high-tech. Companies like Walmart or Apple or Intel or Amazon have their equivalents in China. Literally, China produces the best electric cars and trucks in the world, far better and cheaper than anything produced by the United States, including Tesla. They have amazing achievements. That means, friends, that they can produce missiles and drones more, faster, and better than anybody else, and give them to Russia to use in the Ukraine, and have Russia pass them to Iran to use in the Gulf. Our adversaries are now our economic competitors, and we haven't had that in the United States for a century. The Soviet Union never was an economic competitor. It was too small, it was too backward, it was too weak. It had a strong military, and that frightened the United States, but economic competitor, it never was, never came close. That's not the case with China. China is an economic competitor as well as a military one. And of course, politically, every country in the world is paying attention. China is where you can borrow money if you can't get it from the West. China is where you can sell your goods if you can't sell them in the West. When President Trump hit the world with tariffs, many people around the world, businesses and countries, said, okay, bye-bye, America, we'll sell what we have to China. And China bought it. The world has changed. It's now bipolar, two poles. The United States, whose star is on the way down, and China, whose star is on the way up. Indeed, if you're honest and you look at China, you would recognize that China is now where the United States was a century or maybe a century and a half ago. The up-and-coming country when the British Empire was on the way down, the country that would replace the British Empire, the country that would become the big power in the world. You should recognize in China what we Americans ought to remember about ourselves. And then we ought to sit down and work out a live and let live relationship with them, rather than rattling a saber before we are told by them that they really have more sabers than we do.
And that's the real warning behind Wolff's argument. The question isn't whether China has economic problems. It does. The question is whether those problems are distracting from a much larger transformation that has already taken place. Manufacturing capacity, technology, global trade, and access to financing have turned China into a competitor the United States has to take seriously across multiple fronts. Whether China's rise continues exactly as Wolff expects remains uncertain. But if the global balance is shifting, recognizing that change may matter far more than celebrating one bad economic headline. So what do you think? Is China still trying to catch America, or has the shift already begun?